you for joining us today on our panel on angel groups, angel investors, and family offices. We've got four investors today on our call, so thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to give just a quick introduction of our panelists. We have Bob Bridge, who is from Southwest Angel Network here in Central Texas, and Bob is the founder and executive director of the Southwest Angel Network, and the network invests in social and environmental impact startups. We have Matilda Sung, who is a hands-on early stage investor who focuses on companies that demonstrate superior growth and potential for impact businesses to economy and society. And she is located in Southern California, and she is also a general partner with Ludus Capital, which is a venture firm capital focused on the sports tech category. And they have family offices with locations in California, Washington, D.C., and Asia. And she's also a member of the Tech Coast Angels in Los Angeles. We have Stephanie Campbell, who is one of the three co-founders and general partners of the Artemis Fund, the first female-led female-focused fund based in Houston, Texas. She is also the managing director of the Houston Angel Network, which is one of the most active angel networks in the country. And we have Joseph Liu, who is on the board of Central Texas Angel Network based in Austin. And he's been a member of CTAN since 2015 and also served as the B2B software sector group lead. And he's also on the committee for ecosystems and the investment committee as well. So with those introductions, we'll get started here. And I kind of gave an introduction of what everybody's currently involved in and what role they play in their group. But I really kind of wanted to kind of get a sense of, we'll start with Matilda, we'll start with you. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and you know, what led to you becoming where you are today in terms of involved in these family offices and what you're doing currently?
For sure. Thanks, Laurie. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this panel today. It's great to be here, even in a virtual setting. So thank you. My background, gosh, I have a pretty varied background. I've worn a variety of different hats. I started my career in investment banking. I spent time as a product manager in Silicon Valley. I was a management consultant focused on the tech sector. And most recently, I was leading the digital strategy group for one of the largest sports organizations. So not your traditional path into ventures or angel investing, if you will. I didn't start a company, sell it, and move to buy side. I wasn't groomed like VCP style. I was just really fortunate to have worked on some really innovative projects in every role that I've had throughout my career. And in that, I've had a chance to work with a lot of early stage companies and some of the problems and challenges and even opportunities, of course, that they faced at that point of their life cycle. And a few years ago, an opportunity came up where I was able to marry the interest I had on that side with the investment side of things with my family office. So for the last 3 years, we've been building out the early stage investing arm, if you will, of Sun Capital Partners, which is a larger family office of my family itself. As part of that, I also joined Tech Coast Angels out of the Los Angeles chapter. And Laurie, as you mentioned, more recently, I joined on as a general partner with Ludus Capital. And in that capacity, we work with a much more narrow investment thesis, if you will. We focus specifically on the sports tech category.
Okay, that is really quite a very, very experienced, journey that led to all of those different organizations. And I'm sure that all of those kind of marry nicely into each other. Bob, tell me a little bit about, I know we've talked about how you became involved and what your background looks like.
Well, many years ago, back when dinosaurs used to roam, I got a PhD in computer engineering. Everything I learned is pretty technically obsolete. But I spent 10 years in Fortune 100 companies in a variety of engineering and marketing and sales roles. And then by accident, I got into a startup and started having fun at work for the first time. I did 30 years of high-tech startups. mainly semiconductors, where the MVPs took $20 million in 3 years to put out there, and wasn't going to try to turn that crank again after raising $60 million for those endeavors. And so I founded this angel network focused on giving back. I've always cared about the people being treated unfairly and things like that, and just real natural to build an angel network focused around doing social and environmental good.
Okay, great. And Stephanie, I know that you have kind of an interesting background in Houston. So I'll let you tell us a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Laurie. So my background, actually, I spent 5 years on Capitol Hill as a lobbyist in the transportation infrastructure space, and then decided to get my MBA and move my family to Houston, where I fell in love with entrepreneurship. I started with the Houston Angel Network in 2016, became the managing director 2 years ago. I've grown the group from 60 to 130 members in the last 2 years, and also increased our diversity, which is incredibly important to us. At the time when I became managing director, I had met the co-founder of the Artemis Fund. Diana Murakovskaya had just moved from New York City, where she ran an accelerator for female founders nationally, before she sold it to another group in Seattle. And I asked her, from the outside, what's missing in Houston? And she said, where are all the women investors? And so I thought, man, this is something I could get behind. And over a couple of years, we decided to start a fund. So we officially launched the Artemis Fund last year. And we've seen incredible support from Houston and nationally. We've raised $10 million in the last year and are actively looking for female founders to invest. We have invested in 4 companies so far, and we'll do 15. And so those two roles, both managing director and general partner of the Artemis Fund, work together in this very diverse ecosystem of Houston.
Great. Okay, great. And Joseph, I know that you've been a member of CTAN for 4 years now. What got your interest, and what was your background, and how did you become involved in CTAN?
Hi, everybody. I first learned about CTAN about 10 years ago when I was at the UT, the business school, and I learned about the how to raise money and working with entrepreneurs. And I joined CTAN in 2015. In the past 5 years, I've invested. So CTAN, we have 5 major categories: B2B software, B2C software, CPG products, life science, and hardware manufacturing stuff. So in the past 5 years, I've invested in all 5 categories. And CTAN, so we're taking applications. So we do not focus on specific area. We take all kind of applications. And it's fascinating to work with other investors in Central Texas, in Austin area, to learn from their experience in working deals with other members. And I think that's very exciting in meeting with other entrepreneurs in the ecosystem in Austin, Texas.
And so I'll ask a follow-up question, which will kind of lead us in our next area. So Joseph, can you kind of walk me through what does that process look like for young companies out there that might want to apply? What does that look like, and how do they go about applying?
So in yeah, thank you, Laurie. So in CTAN, the application starts online. So we basically were taking 2 types of application. One is the application on Central Texas Angel Network website. And basically there are 3 steps. The step 1 is all the process is based on members' interest. So the step 1, members will review the application on paper, and we have 2 minutes video executive summary online, and members will vote based on paper. And based on members' interest, we invite company to a 15 minutes presentation. In the 15 minutes presentation, we have 8 minutes presentation and 7 minutes Q&A. Then members will vote again. And based on members' interest, we invite companies back to the second presentation, which will be a 30 minutes presentation, about 15 to 20 minutes presentation. and 10 to 15 minutes Q&A session. So basically there are 3 steps, and all steps are based on the members' interest. So Central Texas Angel Network, we work as a group, but we invest as an individual. So we need a deal lead, we need due diligence lead, we work due diligence as a group, and we collectively move the deals in the process. So this is type 1 application applied on Central Texas Angel Network website. The second sources of our deals come from our affiliate, our other angel networks, or sometimes from the venture capital or private equity. Mostly we syndicate deals from other angel networks.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And Bob, I know that that your process is slightly different. Maybe a little. I know you're a smaller group. Tell us about how typically companies learn about you and how they apply and how you work through that process with companies that are interested.
Well, I'm not sure how they learn about us entirely, because we're getting now about 40% of our applicants from out of state. I think there aren't that many impact angel networks around, so people tend to find us pretty easily. But we have a process sort of like CTAN's. We have a 2-step process instead of 3. We get a written application and a pitch deck and select down to 6 companies to do a 15-minute pitch and about an hour on Q&A. And then based on that, we'll select 3 companies to pitch to a quarterly pitch event to all of our angels. And so it's there's no application fee. It's a pretty, I think, company-friendly atmosphere.
Okay, and then you the 3 companies are you do this quarterly, so every quarter there'll be companies.
And then based on the interest, again, the member interest, as Joseph was mentioning, we'll decide if we want to put together a deal memo, or maybe there's a deal memo from another group, and we'll typically invest from 1 to 3 of those 3.
Okay, great. And have you seen, you mentioned that you're getting more and more out of state people actually applying now. So that's kind of a trend where maybe it's become more national in scope of people.
Yeah, and we're 4.5 years old, and we've just gotten better recognized, I think, at the national level.
Okay. And Stephanie, I know you've got your 2 processes, right? One with Houston Angel Network, which is I'm sure different than the Artemis group. Can you just briefly kind of tell us about how each company is a little bit different in terms of the process that applicants go through?
Yeah, sure. So similar to CTAN, we have an application online. That is the first step to get into the pipeline for the Houston Angel Network. We have a pitch meeting every month, and so we have a monthly deal cycle. After a company applies, we will review that deal internally at industry group meetings. So we have life sciences, energy, tech, consumer, and aerospace. And members will discuss the application, decide if they want to move forward with the deal. And then we have an internal selection committee where we vote for the top 3 companies. And those top 3 will pitch to the Houston Angel Network. And then after the presentation, I will help facilitate diligence with those founders for the interested members. And so all that happens within a month. We see quite a bit of deals, and it's a pretty quick process. We try to get back to entrepreneurs and let them know quickly if it's a yes or a no, or maybe next month. And our members report that each year they invest in around $10 million in somewhere between 90 to 100 deals. So there's a lot of velocity coming through the Houston Angel Network. For the Artemis Fund, it's much different because we are a pooled investment vehicle where the 3 general partners are the investment committee. We decide unanimously if we want to invest in a fund or not. And for that, you can just email me at stephanie@theartemisfund.com, and we will take a look at your company and set up a call if we are interested. And then it goes from there.
Okay. And so with the Artemis group, you're always just constantly, there's no specific application or defined period of time. You're just constantly kind of.
Yeah, exactly. We review, pitch decks and data rooms and financial projections and portfolios, and then decide as a team if we're interested in doing diligence. And then one of us will be responsible for leading that if we are as a group.
Okay.
We've made 4 investments in the last year. We'll make 3 more before the end of the year, and then about 7 to 8 more investments next year. So,
okay. All right, thank you. And then Matilda, you have obviously, you've got the family office, and how does that sort of differ from perhaps the process with the angel group that you're involved in, Tech Coast Angels? Can you walk us through that whole process, and also maybe how do you find the deal flow for your family office?
Right. I think I have a lens sort of into one of each spot, right? So you've got the Tech Coast Angel group, you've got the family office, and you've got sort of more of your formal investment venture house, however you want to look at it. And I think just if I could paint them on a spectrum, the angel group probably has the most structured process in terms of sourcing, evaluating, and bringing deals in. At least for my family office, I would say it's probably the most loose in terms of structure. And I won't speak on behalf of, all family offices, but certainly I have a network of friends and FOs, and it is quite flexible. A lot of times you are working with, family members, individuals. So it's a little bit more loose in terms of structure. And I would say, the venture group that I'm with, it's kind of squarely in the middle. We're a small group. We've only got 3 GPs, so similar to the structure that Stephanie brought on, talked about with Artemis Fund. But maybe it might be helpful to talk a little bit about the Tech Coast Angels, the process. It seems to be of interest, perhaps to entrepreneurs out there. We run a similar process to, I think, what Joseph was talking about with CTAN and others as well. I think it's a 3-step process. We've got an online application that does pretty much a basic screener to make sure you kind of check off the boxes for the main things, like you are Southern California based, or you've got a strong foothold in the Southern California region. Checking off the box of, hey, you've got a product or service that's actually launched already. You've got some traction. You've got a team of members that you work with. So we've got the initial screener that kind of screens for these things automatically. And when you pass through that, you land into sort of a position of a pre-screener type interview, where a few folks from TCA who have worked in the industry that your startup is in will actually meet with you for about 10-15 minutes to get a gauge of how your presentation is, and basically use as an opportunity to gauge and prepare you for the larger presentation, which would then happen with the entire chapter. And I would say recently we've had about close to 40-50 members on these calls. Obviously, they're all virtual right now. And if you make it to that phase, you're presenting to the larger investor group. And that takes the format of about a 15-minute presentation followed by about a 5-minute Q&A or so. Just to give you a sense of numbers in terms of how much we see, for the Los Angeles chapter, we see about 4 deals in every screening call, and that happens twice a month. So that's about 8 deals a month. So you multiply by 12, you're probably talking about close to 100 deals that make it to that formal presentation phase. And again, we are 1 chapter of the 5 chapters that exist, so just multiply it by 5. And when you do present to the larger body of investors, if there is interest, similar to some of the other angel groups out there, if there are interest from a few angels, you'll be kicked off into sort of a due diligence phase. And we typically like to do everything within sort of a 2-week time frame for the DD and get all our answers addressed during that period. And typically it's a member that volunteers their time to run the DD. And at the end of it, again, you have a choice of investing or not, and that's on a per member basis. So pretty structured, pretty, thorough.
A follow-up question to that process is, because you have 5 different, chapters, do you share the deals like from LA if you're, if you decide to kind of go into due diligence and start raising money, is that deal go to your other chapters, or how does that work?
I would say now during COVID times, we have done a lot more deal sharing since everything is virtual, and we've just made the pitch sessions, the screening sessions available to members at large. I think previously, if there were deals that we thought there might be great interest in, say, the San Diego chapter that leans a little bit more towards biotech and life sciences, we will tell the founder to go down to the chapter there, and obviously the board will communicate to acknowledge the transfer of pitches around there. So I would say there is a fair amount of deal sharing where we think is relevant and appropriate given the member base and member interests.
Okay, so that does seem like a very structured and very, sort of well-defined. And then you mentioned that for the family office, it was kind of definitely more loose. So how does, how do you get most of the deals for the family office? Is it sort of outbound looking and bringing deals back, or people contacting you? How does that work?
I think we get a healthy balance between inbound and outbound. I say we tap a variety of places for deal sourcing. Techos Angels is one area where we go to source our deals. But I would say, given sort of the backgrounds of the folks operating in the FO, we naturally have a pretty robust network of folks that either have left to start great companies or left to join a VC and have access to great deals that they may share with us. And for that, we lean towards media entertainment, SaaS tech, healthcare, and renewables. So for those sectors, we actually have a pretty healthy network of our own within the individuals here, from which we'll get like inbound inquiries on. I'll say that we also try to stay pretty relevant out in the startup ecosystem, whether it's participating in panels such as this, judging on various demo days, maintaining a pretty regular cadence of dialogue with folks in the industry, other angel investors, other FOs, family offices, academia. So I do a lot of mentoring and office hours with Berkeley, where I did my MBA. And I think just being present in the industry, people start to know what you guys are about, what you're interested in, what your investment thesis is. And naturally that brings more inbound inquiry than outbound. So I think it's a variety of different places that we'll tap for deals.
Okay. Great. And I'm going to kind of jump to another kind of question, and I'll throw this at Stephanie. Do you, the Houston Angel Network Group, offer outside the process that's kind of structured, any other ways to engage with now COVID, and the pandemic has definitely probably put a damper on things, but what other events are offered to kind of have, the greater community kind of get involved with your investors? And maybe you mentioned kind of increasing your membership. Like how did you do that? And perhaps what changes have you seen here in the last year or two since you've been involved?
Yeah, no, I think that community engagement is incredibly important for angel groups. I mean, I think similar to what Matilda said about being out there, letting people know what you represent and what you're looking for is critical. Angel groups and early stage investors play a huge part of local economies, our national innovation economy. And so, a lot of what we do is engaging with that community. That's how we find the best deals. That's how we find good new members for our group. So with the Houston Angel Network, what we've done over the last year is, when COVID hit, I launched something called Venture versus the Virus, where we brought together VCs and accelerators to talk about, what happened during the last recession and panic, right? Like, how are you looking at deals right now? What's going to change? And we did that for 3 months. And I think people got kind of tired of talking about the virus. And so then we moved on to workshops. So I've been putting on workshops, for example, with Carter Ventures to talk about cap tables. And we have one coming up with Silicon Valley Bank to talk about venture debt. So I see part of my role as the managing director of the Houston Angel Network and in the broader ecosystem of educating investors on how to be good investors. So that, they better engage with the entrepreneur community. And we welcome entrepreneurs to attend those workshops as well, because we want them to understand the ins and outs of how to finance their deals with angels. So education, mostly, being seen as a leader in the innovation community is important to the Houston Angel Network. And so mostly just engagement, education. We also have our members attend and do judging at pitch competitions. We get really involved with Mass Challenge. We do an investment prize with Plug and Play, with Capital Factory, Station Houston, the Cannon. just really getting involved as mentors and active participants of the ecosystem.
Okay, great. All right. I'm going to kind of jump ahead, just in the essence of time, to the next question. Let me ask, I'll kind of go to Joseph and then to Bob on if entrepreneurs are applying and trying to get maybe chosen. Obviously, there's a lot of people applying. What advice would you have to those folks that are applying to kind of improve their chances of maybe getting chosen? What are some ideas that you might have or best practices to help those individuals out? And I'll give that question to Joseph.
So first of all, I think I want to encourage a lot of the entrepreneurs. Sometimes the entrepreneur does not raise the money. It's not because the business or the idea is not good. It's about the fitness. Is the idea fit the interest of your angel investors or the target? So one thing is for my recommendation for the entrepreneurs is understanding your target audience, what is their interest, and is that a fit for the business? So, for example, some business is a lifestyle business. The venture is not there. There's no viable exit for angels, or your expected return is longer than the expectation. So, understanding their agenda, I think that's the first thing to understanding where you're raising money from. And understanding what the track record, what kind of business they're interested in, understand this. That will save you, save entrepreneurs time to raise money, and do not get frustrated if you don't raise money. It's just a different style.
Yeah, and one of the things too that I might have Joseph kind of touch upon is the fact that if startups do apply and they don't get through the process, they can't actually come back and reapply. And so I think perhaps a lot of startups might become discouraged. And I always look at it as a process, and I think just in my mentoring, I always tell anybody that's raising that they should not only be talking to one funding source, but they should be talking to several funding sources. And really, especially if they're looking to fill a round, sometimes it's actually very attractive for them to have a portion of that round filled. It's the first adage that nobody likes to write the first check. And so if they're coming to an angel group and they're already, have some traction, not only in sales and showed a product market fit, but also if they already have several, maybe two other angel groups have already invested and they already have a portion of their round filled. I think those, tend to be very attractive deals. And it's fairly easy to, work with several groups at the same time. And you may have some different opinions on that, but I do think that it does create sort of this sense of urgency that the company is out there and they're actively raising, and everyone kind of then wants to jump on the bandwagon. But I'll turn that question over to Bob as well. So Bob, if companies are applying on your site and you're looking at these companies and you're kind of deciding, which companies, what are some of the things that you would kind of stress or best practices that you would stress with companies that are applying?
Well, the first is a simple one: pay attention to all the information on our website. We're a social and environmental impact network, and we're very clear in a broad sense of what we mean by that, and including, here's what we want to see in the pitch deck. Make sure you include these types of slides on your impact measurements. We care about two bottom lines, obviously the business results, but also the impact. And so we want the companies to tell the best possible story about the efficacy of their impact. Are they really making the world a better place somehow, either socially or environmentally? And I would also say that we give, maybe because we don't have as much deal flow as some other groups, we give very detailed feedback that everyone applies, even when we say no. It's not just a vote saying you didn't make it. We try to say what we faulted them on, and please apply again when you've addressed these. So in that sense, we're trying to help these companies get to the funding through funding eventually.
No, that's very helpful. I think you brought up a really good point. And I think that anybody that is, like, my tip would be that anyone that's looking to raise money through an angel group, that you really kind of do the research and read, because a lot of angel groups have on their site kind of what type of companies they're looking for, but what type of information they're also looking for as part of the application process. And so I'm going to kind of fast forward it a little and say that a company has gotten through, the first layer of the screening and is now going to pitch. And I'll turn it over to Stephanie. Can you maybe give some best practice tips for pitching, or even think of a situation where it didn't go so well, and maybe give a little feedback on what you think would be sort of some guidance that you would give companies when they get to that stage?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I haven't seen many not go so well at the pitch stage because we've screened them up to that point, right? Usually it goes pretty well. Where I tend to find that things fall apart are in diligence, where founders don't follow up on questions, or they may be adversarial towards angels because there's a lot of people asking a lot of questions, and in emails I'll see see PowerPoint page 5 paragraph bullet 2. It's like, that's not what they asked you. This is a relationship. You're getting essentially married to some. It's more serious than getting married in some cases. So you want to make sure that you realize that investors are evaluating you and putting you through diligence, even once there's a term sheet given. And so be respectful. Try to create a relationship with these investors. That's what they're looking for from you, because they are investing a lot of times in the team at these early stages. And the way that you respond and the way you engage with them is going to be indicative of your long-term relationship. So that's where I tend to see things fall apart, is when a founder maybe gets overwhelmed and is not as respectful as they should be, or when someone does give you feedback, like Bob says, and you don't take it well, and you disagree with their perception of the market or your business. A lot of times founders see this as their baby, and got to be careful not to call someone's baby ugly, and so, or do it in a respectful way. And so we coach, our investors on that, like treating these entrepreneurs respectfully, and we expect those entrepreneurs to treat our investors respectfully as well. And so that's typically where I see it fall apart. But mostly I see it go well, right? Some of the best job I've seen is by entrepreneurs who follow up. They're proactive. They've got the information ready. They build an FAQ page of frequently asked questions they get from investors to help expedite the process. So, I've seen some pretty good examples as well.
Okay, great. Matilda, I'll ask you in both situations, both in the Tech Coast Angel Group and I guess your family office would be a little bit less formal, but maybe some of those due diligence might end up falling apart. If you could just kind of focus on or touch upon both situations.
Yeah. I mean, I have to echo what Stephanie said. I think for the most part, at least for Tech Coast Angels, by the time you get to sort of the end of presentation, due diligence portion of it, it's a pretty good sign, right? And again, I think where things could go awry is maybe the lack of accessibility from the founder, right? We run a pretty rigorous process in a pretty tight time frame within Tech Coast Angels. So in about 2 weeks time frame, we may want to speak with additional members in the team, the founder once again, other customers, prior investors, basically a whole 360. And that's just part of the drill in order for investors to really get a better understanding of the company itself. So I think so much what others have said, just the accessibility of a founder is really key during this time. You've made it this far, like continue to offer that commitment and show us that you're there as an having an invested relationship with us going forward. think that's really important. I think something Bob said was pretty relevant in terms of just folks need to just make sure they read sort of all the guidance and directions that's been given to them already off the shelf, either it's on the website or prior to something. So I've been in pitched presentations where there's maybe 5 minutes offered and they think they can get through 50 slides. I don't know where they come up with that. And it's just a matter of like, do yourself a favor. Like, don't try to fit like 50 slides in 1 minute when they say, hey, you have 1 minute left. It just doesn't look good for you. It makes me cringe for you. So, I mean, there's a bit of just preparing yourself for that. I think that's important. And then as for family office, I think when I mentioned earlier, things are a little bit loose, a little bit less structured. I think what happens is sometimes, there may be gaps in terms of information that gets communicated. So we really we really need to hone in on all the details from the founder. So don't leave out things that might be relevant, such as, top talent that might be leaving, technology that is shared with others, patents that you weren't able to get through, just things that, that need to be shared. Please do share that. So we can actually have an informed evaluation of the company itself. But overall, like I think for the most part, by the time you get to presentation of investment committee or of the larger group, I think startups are the founders are typically in a pretty nice place.
Okay. Bob, are there any red flags that maybe everything, company seems really great and they get through the process and then you start doing your due diligence, and any red flags where you may have caused you to walk away from a deal that you could kind of mention perhaps, could have been avoided, or maybe they couldn't have. So any examples you can think of, or anything
maybe the most likely example, we lose confidence in the CEO. We learn things about their judgment, and the type of people they surrounded themselves with, maybe that we don't think are quality people. And so, the team is probably the most frequent thing that blows up during due diligence for us. Okay,
that's a good, that would definitely cause concern. Joseph, I know I'm going to kind of circle back with you. In terms of either deals kind of falling apart, or I know that we didn't really spend time talking about portfolio companies. So if you could touch upon any tips that you would have to kind of make sure things go well during the due diligence process, and also maybe touch upon, the ability to come back a second time for companies that may need additional funding, how that may work for those companies.
So for the existing portfolio companies, I think I have a few investment portfolio companies. The CEO have done a good job. They report a monthly or quarterly report to the investors, or they keep sending out the progress. Even the deal didn't go through, they keep sending the emails to the potential investors, keep tracking. So when they come back the second time, we have an idea what has changed and what they have done in the past time. So I think that keep contact with a potential investor, that's very important. And number two is when it comes to the second application, showing what they have achieved, what they promised to do and what they have done, and do a comparison. Did they hit the target, or did they overachieve the target, and what has changed? So especially for portfolio companies, there is some history of the company, maybe 2 years, 4 years, and the new investors will always ask the questions, what have you done in the past 4 years and why now? Why do you need this round? And what this round of funding is going to change the trajectory of business, or what is going to change the business? So for the portfolio company, keep a relationship with the potential investors and keep updating and showing the progress. I think that's important for portfolio companies.
Okay, great. Good. Stephanie, do you have anything to add to companies coming back once they've raised, and what are your members' appetites for, continue to invest in those same companies?
Yeah, Han does quite a bit of follow-on investments. I really appreciate Joseph's comment about keeping potential investors involved. We highly recommend that at the Artemis Fund too. We'll talk to companies that are led by women that may be too early, because we want to start the relationship early, see how they grow, how they perform with maybe pre-seed money, and then if we're ready to invest at the seed level as the lead investor. So I think that I would, highly recommend exactly that you do keep those potential investors informed with, quarterly emails, bullet points of the highlights of how you're doing, and, with potential asks, because I actually have helped founders like, oh, I know that person, I can make that introduction. And so keep them informed. And I would say those companies that we have good relationships with and that do keep our members informed, we're absolutely always happy to have them come and provide updates to the Houston Angel Network. So in addition to 3 companies every month, occasionally we will have a company that's already raised money, give us an update in preparation for their next funding round, or if they have a bridge round opened.
Okay, great. And Matilda, how does Tech Host Angels, do you guys have a lot of reinvesting in companies like portfolio companies, and how do your portfolio companies typically stay engaged and raise additional funding rounds or bridge rounds?
Yeah, I'd like to just, kind of echo what parties have said so far. We do like to do follow-ons when available, when it makes sense. We certainly participate there. But on the point in terms of companies that may have pitched and didn't get funding the first round, we do like to keep everybody within the ecosystem. And a great way of doing it, as Joseph mentioned, is just having the founders really keep that relationship alive, keep us knowledgeable, notified of what's going on with their company. Did they complete the raise? What are the milestones that they may have had since we last spoke? And to what others have said is, you never know. There may be an investor that might be a bit more appropriate for that company that we had declined previously. And I know on the TCA side and also on the family office side, we do our best to help our founders for which we have a relationship in and which we may not have invested in. So in short, I would say there is definitely benefit to staying in the ecosystem, and the way to do that is just to keep the relationship alive and keeping the dialogue going on.
Okay, perfect. And Bob, do you want to add anything to how you may kind of engage with some of the companies you've invested in for follow-on investments?
We've only been around for 4.5 years, so we don't have a lot of companies going through second rounds yet, but we have made some follow-on investments. It gets easier when some of our angels have had board seats. We really understand the company well. And if we've led the deal, been the earliest investor, often we will get a board seat.
Okay, sounds good. One more question before we kind of wrap things up, and for those especially that have been in business and for a while, I know Matilda, you have. How have you seen things kind of change, or have they changed? Definitely this year they've changed, but any trends that you've seen sort of in the industry that are worth noting?
Yeah, I think in the last sort of 5, 7, maybe even decade, the portion of the value chain in the early stage investing, if you will, just has seen so many more new entrants. There's just been greater accessibility by both founders and entrepreneurs, and I think a lot of it just has to do with just growing awareness about what early stage investing means. And I think that's been propelled by folks like Jason Calacanis. He's a pretty well-known angel investor, and he's very out and about in terms of the successes he's had in training others to follow suit in his ways as an angel investor. I think you can look at like a mainstream, look at Shark Tank, the show. I think that's just to demystify a lot of what it means to invest in early stage companies. And I think that awareness leads to greater accessibility. So I think that coupled with, I would even say, innovations like AngelList platform, and Seed Invest and some of these other properties that kind of democratize sort of access to early stage deals. I think that coupled with the awareness has just led to greater accessibility. And I think as time goes on, that's just going to continue forth and lead to a more robust capital environment, which is both good for the founders and also good for innovation at large.
Great, great. And I will just say, sort of being like in sort of the ecosystem and the angel networks at the same time, I think that just, there's just so many additional partners in the space between additional levels of groups. I know, Stephanie, you've just created one that's focused on women. In addition, so you kind of have, the ability to share those deals among those two groups. Here in Austin, we have a group that's focused on women as well. Bob, you're fairly new in the space and you're focused on impact. So I think just the amount of not only angel groups, but also accelerator groups, like Newchip is one of those groups that sort of help companies kind of, be better about reach out and be better about seeking opportunities. But then there's the technology as well, which kind of goes to further those efforts, and that technology has made it accessible for people not to only raise in their backyard, but to raise across the whole country and maybe even, internationally. Stephanie, do you want to say any thoughts on sort of those changes that you've seen in just in fundraising?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is a lot of awareness, and there's been a change in thinking about how you invest your dollars for economic and social impact. And I think that has definitely helped with the rise of funds, that have an impact focus. Investing in females and diversity is not a charity. It makes good business sense, good financial sense. Diverse back startups, when they're funded, outperform. And I think there's just been an awareness and increased interest in using your capital for change. And so I think we're excited about that. I mean, I think it's a shame that we're the first in Houston. There ought to be more. And we're encouraging, more women and diverse fund managers in our ecosystem, and, sort of showing them how we did it and encouraging them to do it. It's a disgrace that less than 2% of venture capital goes to women-led teams with just one woman on the executive team in the United States. And so we've had a tremendous success in under a year, and I think that will continue. We've had tremendous success in our portfolio companies. They're already proving out that they can outperform. And so we're really excited about that and hope it will continue to be a trend.
Great. And Joseph, I know that just like with CTAN, just in terms of kind of connecting with other groups, and whether it be different ecosystem partners, I don't think CTAN had your position, which was ecosystem committee before, and now they do. Have you seen any other further changes that maybe evolved since you've been a member, or just changes in the industry?
I think the biggest change is the visibility for the entrepreneurs because of the COVID. They changed the in-person communication, but I think there's still opportunity through Newchip incubators and through this online events. Entrepreneur can still increase the visibility and reach out to different angel networks, not just in their backyard, but also to the different angel networks in different specialties, focus on women. And so I think that's the biggest change. That may change the behavior for a founder or entrepreneur, the way to approach to angel investors.
Okay.
If I could just add in, Laurie, that I didn't mention it earlier, but our network is very supportive of underrepresented teams. And we actually make sure that some of them make them through to our final pitch night. And half our investments to date have been to teams with either a woman or a person of color as a C-level co-founder. So that's part of our DNA also. Thank you, Stephanie, for what you're doing with your deal too.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, and I've seen kind of just sort of a further approach to try to get more diversity, and anyone who has measures in place like Stephanie and Bob and Matilda and Joseph to make those things happen is really admirable, and hopefully, we'll see those efforts continue as time goes on, and more women-led and diverse groups get the funding. So I think that's very important as well, and to have incubators that also kind of focus on trying to coach those women, and trying to get them, how to, and teach them where to go to get funding and who to reach out to and how to reach out to them, is very important as well. In closing, just in the essence, I think we're coming up on our time. Is there any other advice that maybe we have not covered in closing? Would you offer in terms of startups trying to find I know it's all about finding the right angel group or the right investor, could mean the difference between getting funded and not getting funded. So any parting words of wisdom for startups to really kind of use their time wisely and, really kind of find and connect to investments, whether they be investors with an angel group, investors with a family office, or just an individual angel investor. Any parting words of wisdom on that? I'll turn it over to Stephanie. We'll kind of go one by one.
One by one. Okay. So I would say in Houston, check out houstonexponential.org. We have got a full list of ecosystem participants on the website where you can see a brief description of what that group invests in. I think it's really important that you research the groups that you're trying to seek capital from. Like Matilda said earlier, know what they invest in, know what types of deals, what size deals, if you're the right fit, and try to get to know fast, right? Ask them questions. Have you ever invested in a startup before? Have you ever invested in X industry before? What's your check size? So you just know if it's a good fit or not. And just, be respectful and follow up, and timely and follow up. Because usually they have, something new and shiny the next month to look at as a potential investment. And so you want to make sure you follow up.
Okay, great advice. Bob, do you have any, I know you just gave some thoughts, but any additional thoughts in closing?
Well, sometimes we see companies that have been through 3 or 4 or 5 different accelerators. And, if they can't make the business work after the first one, it's kind of questionable whether they should be raising money.
Yeah. And in terms of finding the right investor, any words of wisdom on, really kind of maybe
if you have something with high efficacy in terms of impact, come talk to us.
Got it. Okay. Joseph, any additional thoughts on finding the right investor group?
So I think one is finding the industry experts, and if you can find a power sponsor and follow the power sponsor, no matter where the power sponsor is in, maybe in East Coast, West Coast, or Texas. If you're in Austin, of course, please check on the CTAN website. But finding a power sponsor and a mentor and walking you through this journey that may help you to raise money. So ideally, find a investor who knows the business and who has the expertise to raise money in your industry, and follow the advice.
Got it. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's great advice. And Matilda, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I think I always say to founders, look at the capital beyond the dollars. So what is it that you could use help in beyond just money, right? Is it getting greater access through someone's network? Is it looking for someone with deep operating expertise in a particular set vertical? Or is it someone who can help you with customer acquisition, someone who can help you with sales and marketing, and really think through that? There is still a very robust capital market out there. So it's still a bit of a founder's market in a way. So you can have a bit of a choice in terms of who you take money from, but also think about how they can serve you as mentors, as door openers, as network accessors as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for everyone for your time today and participating. I think everyone's advice and just describing the organizations you're involved in are really helpful to the people that are watching. So again, thank you everyone for your time. And Yeah, have a good day. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thanks, everyone.